Mad PD, everybody. I'm Noah Daniel. I'm so excited to be here. I'm often excited. Mad PD was a beautiful idea by two really great thinkers in education, and I'm excited to share this time on the musical side of Bob. I have two projects that make a difference in my classroom and making a difference in some other classrooms too. So I'm excited to share a lot of things. I'm happy to take questions throughout or at the end. Please send me a note on Twitter at Noah's Bobs, and I'm happy to answer you as we go. I'll do my best because when I get in the zone, I might not notice, but I promise I'll get to you before it's over. So here is Bobbing Through the Music, an exploration of how these Building Outside the Blocks projects make a difference for kids and help build skill, autonomy, community, and a sense of self inside and outside of the curriculum. I'm going to switch you over to my Hangout, do some screen sharing. And here we are. So this is Bobbing Through the Music. For those of you that are new to the Building Outside the Blocks idea, I create projects, and these projects are a twist on project-based learning and some of the things I love so much. So the Building Outside the Blocks approach is a teaching and learning approach that uses personalizing projects to help students build skill, autonomy, community, and minimal class time. The icons that I use, this represents the teacher as facilitator, time, choice, and community. And I'm going to get into a little bit of it now, but more through the example from the projects. This is the visual that I use when I talk about the Bob approach. Each of the projects can be done as a project, but what makes them high-yielding strategies is using these four aspects in tandem and allowing students to feel pretty incredible about their work, a sense of self-determination. I'll show you what I mean. So, music. I love music. I've always been the kind of person who likes to dance to her own rhythm, but I love a good beat. And finding ways to infuse your classroom with music is easy. You start the day, you end the day with a great tune, but music can also be something really powerful, an incredible channel for learning. I taught in middle school for a very long time. So for those of you that teach middle school and above, you know that music is a powerful way into a person and out of a person. But I'm noticing through other people's work that it actually applies to kids much younger. I'm going to begin by speaking about history beats. I came up with this 3 years ago because I was given the task of teaching what's called individuals and societies in grade 6, 7, and 8. In grade 8, it's history and geography. And I needed to be able to teach in my international baccalaureate school in the middle years program, globally minded, a curriculum that was very Canada-centric. So I love music. I wanted to infuse the classroom with it. And I came up with this idea. This idea is not particularly new in that teachers have always found a way to use music or the lyrics of music to help understand historical context. But using this as a Bob is extremely powerful. So the students have to choose a song that's either about a historical event or a person in history or an issue. They share the song, they share the annotations, looking deeply into the lyrics, and then they do research to determine if the history is congruent with the lyrics or if the lyrics are telling a different story. They present to the class on the day that they choose, in however they choose, and they take feedback from the class with questions, comments, and critiques. I take pictures, sometimes I film. Once Derek came in and he recorded it, but really it's about the students learning from each other, teaching each other, co-learning with me. It's a very powerful scenario, and the students look forward to whose history beats is when. And as the facilitator, I'll write the agenda and they'll say, oh, your history beats is today. Now, the first time I introduced this, I was really excited about the list we were generating of songs, so I included the parents. And I had a parent email me and say, I'm taking the rest of the day of work off because I have to spend it adding all my favorite songs to this list. And I thought, yes, engagement. I have the whole community. But guess what? The kids in grade 8, they were not excited that their parents were weighing in on the songs. So I retracted that offer in the next year, and even better work ensued. So this girl, for example, chose to do the song Superwoman by Alicia. And at the beginning, to be honest, I actually didn't see what she saw, but she chose when she wanted to present and how she wanted to present. And on the day that she was presenting to the whole class, I usually sit among the class, I was really intrigued by the lens that she chose. So she went to the beginning of the fight for women's rights in North America, and she went to modern times. And it was so interesting to hear her tell the story of that song with this long view. And then she added to the conversation the question of women in sports in general and specifically in hockey. And so she took the conversation through her own interests, through her own choices, to deeply analyze this very beautiful song. This boy chose this song, chose to annotate it in a Google Doc, chose the day that he presented, and chose how he presented, what his focus was, how he looked into the modern experience of this. And every one of the learners could choose meaningful songs from the genres that interested them. One of these students decided to choose Kanon's Waving Flag and actually compared and contrasted the three versions, one about the Somalian Civil War, one when it was repurposed for the World Cup, and one when Young Artists for Haiti used it as a fundraiser. So it was an amazing way to show students taking initiative and driving their learning. But the critical questioning that came with it that was also really powerful helped to connect it back to the curriculum, which I'll explain in a minute. The genres, the time lapse, the timeline. It is unbelievable, the spectrum of history that can be covered with history beats. So this can work from grade 8 all the way up. Students can take songs that are appropriate for school. They can go back in time, they can go forward in time, and they can look at the things that maybe they took for granted, maybe help them wonder, maybe helps them see the power of music in telling a story. Who knew that Iron Maiden had a song about D-Day? There was so much that was happening, and there were so many issues covered that you know, one of the things that always solidifies a project for me is seeing the students' responses. And when I read after the first year some of these responses, I was really affirmed that this was the right way to go. So one student said, it's a unique way for me to learn about important issues. Another said, learning about events I had never heard of. I liked this project, and I liked the freedom of choosing any song. And then another student said, the most interesting part about my history beats was delving into the history of African Americans. While listening to others, I realized some fascinating facts and real struggles. And that's the community aspect of the Bob approach, is you're not just handing it into your teacher, you're sharing it. And as a learning community, it is unbelievable what we all learn from each other. And it creates the kind of atmosphere where kids feel free to take risks, where kids feel free to explore their own interests, and where kids really drive their learning. If you have this in a history class, or if you have this in a core class, the themes that you can explore that bring you back into the curriculum, that bring you to big ideas like acceptance, perseverance, courage, compassion, kindness, loyalty, equity. There's so much you can do with history beats. So history beats is what I call a one-off, Bob. It's a building outside the blocks project that you visit one time. This particular project was presented over 2 months. So I introduced it. I gave some time for the students to investigate which song that they wanted during class, and then they were off, and the rest of it is done at home. So the 5 to 7 minutes that it takes for each presenter, I usually don't do more than 3 in a day, allow me to have a full class, a full lesson after that, even in a rotary system. And these projects build skill, autonomy, and community, as I said, in minimal class time. So that's one example of music in my classroom that was extremely powerful, and I have so much evidence about why it worked. The PS2, I was coming back to work after maternity leave with my third daughter, and I was teaching grade 7 language arts. Again, I hadn't taught it in a few years, and I was so excited, and I wanted to do something cool. So I was sitting in Starbucks planning out what my projects were going to be, because I've always done these projects, and I hadn't even called them building outside the blocks yet, because I hadn't even known that I was doing anything really different. And I was planning out what was going to be a self-portrait until I saw a kid playing with a little video game, and I thought, PS. So I decided to change it to portrait of yourself, and then the second iteration was a personal soundtrack, and the third one was photosynthesis. And I'll explain that 3-part Bob project idea after, but I want to focus a little bit on the PS2. So my grade 7 students picked a nostalgic song. one that reflects their identity, and one that they called, or I called at the time, an anthem or a theme song. But why hear it from me? Hear it from them.
Music is the tune of life, so don't tune it out, by Jacob Trescott.
Music is a way of life. Without music, life would be a mistake.
Songs I chose, like, they represent me, and like it really is about me.
This has probably been one of the best experiences in a project that I've ever done. It's something that I look forward to doing.
Well, I was happy with my overall project, but I think if we could have changed the project, I wish there were more topics to that we had to have a song for. I wish we could have had more songs, because it was really fun to choose a song and to see what other people chose and see, thinking, oh yeah, that one suits that topic well.
You could put more work into this than you would other projects, or?
Well, yes, because I enjoyed this project more than I would have other projects. Research projects are kind of boring, and you just do them, you just want to get it over with. This is just more about me, and it was easy. There weren't questions I didn't know how to answer. It was just about me.
I've had a lot of fun doing the PS1, and I'm having fun working on my PS2. I'm really excited for the PS3.
I loved it. It was such a good experience.
The whole experience of the PSs. It's a really cool thing, and I think I really like all of it together. How the PS1 you're learning about yourself, and the PS2 you're learning about the music, and the PS3 I'm pretty sure it's about pictures. So I'm really excited for the PS3.
So many things to unpack in this video. I forgot to mention that this video was created because my then middle years program, or MYP, coordinator said, what is this thing you're doing in the class? It's so exciting. The kids are so engaged. And she asked a colleague, Adam, to film this. And he was filming my students in the classroom next to mine as other students were actually presenting their PS2s. And then we stopped because we wanted the whole community to be there. But I had no idea what the students were saying. So you can imagine how elated I was to have this data, to know that it was impactful, not just in the curriculum of building communication skills and using different kinds of ed tech, but really, truly, deeply touching them. And when this girl said that they weren't questions she didn't know how to answer, it helped me see for the first time that this was a personal inquiry that I was sending students on, and that there was so much value, especially in the middle years, to give students opportunities to investigate themselves, wonder about themselves, think about how they think, and give them a step in a sense of identity that makes them feel proud and helps them own who they are. So what was really interesting about this, I had shared some of my projects with teachers in my school, but there was a parent of one of these students actually in the video who said to me, oh my gosh, if it's okay, can I have the outline for this? So I was like, of course you can share it. I'm so excited. And she sent me this as a response. So Jen Cohen, thank you so much for sending this to me, for affirming to me for the first time that this was something for other students, not just my students. So I highlighted some of the things I wanted to share. As soon as I introduced it to audience to watch and listen to each other. As the teacher, no project ever has allowed me to learn about my students so well, so quickly. They empathized, celebrated the heartfelt stories of each other's past, respected each other, which created a family type of environment. So this is somebody not in my classroom, didn't see how I did it, and she was so compelled just through her own daughter's testimony that she started to use it. And then that's really when I started to feel like my projects may have legs. So I started to write about them some more, and I started blogging, and I've been sharing this idea. And what was really interesting was at a lunch last year, meeting Stephen Hurley of the amazing Voice Ed Radio and the amazing Stephen Hurley for the first time. He sat across the table from me and had asked me many times before, hey, Noah, do you want to have a podcast? Because he felt that I had something to add. And I said, I don't know how to podcast. And he said, come on, I'll support you. And all of a sudden, on that fateful June day, I said, what if I took that PS2 assignment and I brought adults into the conversation, and educators came with their nostalgic identity, and then I changed it to Pick Me Up Motivational Inspirational Song. And because we don't say soundtrack as much as we say playlist, I P3'd the whole thing. Bit about what I know. These are only the people who have told me about it. So the amazing Carol Salva, who was an early adopter of Bob's, and I am forever grateful for that, used the P3 in her classroom, and she teaches ELL students and newcomers. And when she posted this on Twitter, it not only showed me that this project can work with all different learners and all different grade levels, but it really showed me how powerful this was. So it's hard to see. I'll read it to you. This boy wrote, and I'm just going to change one word. It motivates me because this song makes me think of my past. I moved almost 6 times. For example, I had 3 different middle schools. So I had to see new faces almost every year and make new friends. It was very hard to leave my friends. But during the music, there are lyrics that say, no matter where you go, you know you're not alone. This sentence makes me feel comfortable. So I usually listen to the music and it heals me when things feel hard. Like, imagine what it can do for people in tumultuous situations, for people who are navigating change, for people who are going through difficult situations. And because we don't know what people are going through, this melts the iceberg of their lives and brings the whole learner into the classroom in a safe and beautiful way, because they're not standing up there and saying, this is me, but we're helping them say, this is me, by giving them a chance to share the music that tells their story. And people's stories really do come out. Amazing, magical things happen on my podcast because people unpack their songs and share pieces of themselves that give me this intimate experience with them. And then when I go and I blog, I spend like this extra time with these people. I spend the week blogging and editing their audio. And then the next week I get to revisit them when it airs. And to know that students are doing this in their classrooms, and to know that they're using the Bob approach with music, it really warms my heart. Ariana Lambert came on my show a little while ago, and she was really motivated, and she brought it to her grade 4 students. It didn't even occur to me to put it at this grade level. And here they are thinking and showing the process of what it's like to come up with the song. It's not an easy task. People on the show have told me that it's a heart-wrenching task even. And you think, well, they're young, they have less songs to choose from. But when you make it about identity, kids really use it as an opportunity to think about what they value and who they are. Ariana actually invited me to the TDSB Ed Chat this week, and I hadn't looked at the questions, and then I realized I had to be on the road. So I was preparing to participate in the chat as best as I could. And oh my gosh, this came up. And I was shocked that it was so meaningful to her, what she was doing, that she was bringing this to the Toronto District School Board community. And it means so much to me. So whether it's in conversation to get teachers talking, or in the classroom to give students an avenue into themselves and out into the world, music is so powerful. And this quote from her from the archive of the chat really shows that it can also be looking at how students have passions and the kind of impact they want to have on the world. So like I said, music is a way out and a way in. On Friday, I needed some Kleenex because Ramona Mayhart posted this. And these are her developmental ed students, age 15 to 21, sharing their P3s. And they weren't even supposed to present for 6 days, but they were too excited. Now, if you go on her Twitter feed, you can see some of the video. But if you see the kids' faces, I'm sorry, but how do you not emote? when you have a project, when you have a way into learners, when kids feel good about themselves at school, they remember that learning can be fun, and they create this visceral schema that learning and positivity can equate, and you can do so much. Oh my gosh, and you can learn so much, and you can use what you learn about the students in teaching them other times. I mean, there is so much you can do with just these two Building Outside the Blocks projects in whatever world of education that you're in. And then yesterday, Helen DeWard, who was just on the show, wrote a blog post, and they tagged me. And the idea that the P3 is more than a podcast, it's pretty powerful to me. I hope that more people use it in their classroom, but please tell me about it. I am so excited that what I created for my students works for other people. So let me come back to what I created for my students. This tribob is a 3-part Building Outside the Blocks project. It started with a portrait of yourself where students have any way that they can share who they are. And they did it high-tech and low-tech, did it in unbelievably creative ways. And while I give lists and we do brainstorming to come up with different ways that students can manifest their projects and create products, they always surprise me. And some kids sculpt, and some kids paint, and some kids scrapbook, and some kids collage, and some kids create videos. And it is unbelievable. So the medium is the message. The kids share pieces of themselves through pieces of themselves. And then they go on to share their personal soundtracks, and we grow even deeper into each other. And then after a year of teaching students how to decode photographs, they take their own photographs and they lead the decoding of the text through what I called photosynthesis. But all of my tribobs spiral. They revisit similar aspects of the project. So we're still looking at communication skills and media literacy here, but each time there's a new layer and dimension. The assessment can be diagnostic, formative, and summative, but it can also give you lots of opportunities for formative feedback and give students opportunities to take your feedback and be actionable to them, to respond and actually make those next steps happen. And again, giving students multiple opportunities to deepen skills, allow them to keep that growth mindset going. So the whole point of this is that music is one of the many ways to bring the whole child into a learning experience and to get kids excited about class. When my students walk in and they see the agenda and they get excited, they're like, oh yay, this person's presenting today. And then every time I read a reflection, whether it's a music-oriented Bob or it's not, students just reaffirm it and then help me iterate what the project is to make sure that I really am delivering it to everybody. So music is something that makes a difference for people, all people. And for learners in your classroom or in your community, music really is a way into who they are, what they love, what they're passionate about, what interests them, what genres they like, and a way out of themselves where people can't always find the words, but they can find the music. So I just want to remind you, this is a Building Outside the Blocks project where I use these projects to help teach a variety of skills, to help students build their ability to self-direct, to pick their own dates when they present, to backwards design that in view of their own calendar, to give them the time that they need to feel successful, to make sure that when the class community is listening to presentations, they're not listening to 25 or 30 in a day, but kids are saying, I want to go first, or I want to go last, or let me see a few before I go. I just finished a rocket project that I'm blogging about now in the curriculum in terms of rocks and minerals for grade 4, but really beyond the curriculum in terms of the ed tech that the students used and the way that they approached the project. And one of the students, as soon as he saw the first project presented, he was going to go last. He was like the hang back and wait and procrastinate kind of kid. And he said, Mrs. Daniel, I want to do this next week. And he went home and spent 8 hours on his project because he was engaged. Imagine if there was music. So I'm Noah Daniel. Please relate on Twitter, talk to me, become part of my PLM. I love learning from so many people. Send me a note, Noah at Building Outside the Blocks. Check out the website and the different projects that I offer, the different presentations that I offer. I blog about my guests on the Personal Playlist podcast, and I blog about my projects and other things in education. But mostly about building outside the blocks in the many ways that it happens. Before I take questions, I just want to make a quick announcement that I'm going to press play over here. Hold on. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of the Personal Playlist podcast, and I'm going to be sending out applications to be a contestant on the Personal Playlist podcast playoffs. Thanks to my many guests, I have amazing books that have been donated by the authors and time donated by the people. So be a contestant, listen to the show, and celebrate people's stories through their P3s. Okay, I'm done with that now. Now, really quickly, some of the skills that students build through these projects include things in the curriculum, like all of the language arts curriculum, plus creative thinking and critical thinking, but ultimately the learning skills that we assess on report cards, you can actually track this over time through these projects. Students sign up for the day that they present within the parameters that I provide. So students might present every day that I'm in their classroom, or they might present once a week over a longer period of time. But we don't need to only use the blocks of time that we're given. We can actually build outside the blocks, and that can be very liberating for all learners. The community has an active role to not just watch presentations, but to give feedback. And by doing that, they actually articulate the success criteria and become a community of coaches, become so positive, and they really are their best selves. And it creates a fantastic classroom culture that really fosters risk-taking. Students can use time in a different way. I might use class time to introduce, model, and present presentations, and sometimes some start time, but really there's very minimal class time being used. And instead of giving homework, this is work at home, homework for planning, creating, rehearsing, and revising their presentations. And my role is really as the facilitator, the note taker, the assessor, the accommodator, and again, the creative collaborator. So I've accommodated students through their IEPs in terms of how many people they present to. Sometimes they work up through a tribe of just presenting to me and then presenting to a smaller group and then to the whole class. There's so many ways that we can build ramps for learners and make these assignments accessible to every single person in the room. I'm teaching now in the York Region District School Board half the days of my life, and I know now that this works for everybody across the curriculum, across age groups, across, I don't know, everything. I didn't even know that it could be so accessible. And my role as creative collaborator is super fun. A student will say to me, I was thinking about creating an iMovie. Have you used iMovie? No, I've never used iMovie. Okay, great. Well, why don't you try it and come and see me if you need some support? Or I had a student who wanted to use Subnautica, which I didn't even know about. He's coding in it to present his work. I have students sometimes who want to create something with a material, and I'll say, oh, I've actually been collecting. I'm Hector the collector. I've been collecting a whole bunch of this material. Why don't you try this and see if it's a medium that works for you? So that's bobbing through the music, and I will officially take questions. If you have a question for me, please send me a note. You can private message me now, or we can stop and I can talk to you afterwards. Building outside the blocks is an approach that I love. It's something that, let me just stop screen sharing for a second and come back. I just want to come back and say that, oh dear, what? Why am I still on screen sharing? I have to figure out why that's happening. Anyhow, I hope, okay, there, yay. I hope that this was something that you can bring to your classroom. Music makes a difference in my classroom, but it makes a difference for learners and for me because I'm a learner. And when everybody's learning from each other, they feel excited, they feel empowered, and there's so many ways that we can connect back to the curriculum, but really it's through the child. So we get to learn, or the person, we get to learn who they are, what makes them tick, what lights them up. And through that, we can do so many things in education. If I see what makes a person tick, oh, that's a Donna Miller-Fry line from tomorrow's P3, but if I see that in a person, I can use that when I'm teaching them a subject that's hard for them, and I can remind them that they felt wonderful at school. And that's a great avenue for success in school. But I can also give them opportunities to feel that who they are and what they love is valued. And it doesn't just matter to me. It matters to the whole class community, and that we're all better off together. When you're in my classroom during any Bob presentation, but especially with the music, There is pure silence. I don't need to do any classroom management. Kids are self-regulating for each other and for themselves because there's something special about how these projects are presented. So yeah, building outside the blocks, these are practices that are good practices. But when you do all 4 things at the same time, when you use time in a distinct way, when you offer choice of when to present and how to present and to whom to present, because audience is really important and sometimes it's too much for somebody at the beginning, but you should see how they can work up to it when you give them formative feedback that they can then be responsive to. That feeling of success, that thing that you can build on, Bobs do that, and music. Oh, music in the classroom is not just for rocking in and out of your day. It can actually become a project that helps students build skill, autonomy and community, and a sense of self in minimal class time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Reach out, talk to me, have a conversation. I'm so excited to see everybody else's presentations today. And thank you so much to Peter and to Derek for making that PD happen.